Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Metropolis Radio. Today we are talking about the fact that Scarlett Johansson doesn't plan to return to the MCU after Black Widow. Yes, this is another article coming to us from Screen Rant. That goes on to say Scarlett Johansson does not plan to return to the MCU after Black Widow, after being in the works of Marvel Studios for over a decade. Natasha Romanoff's first solo outing was initially announced at San Diego Comic-Con in 2019. Jeez, I forgot it was announced like 2 years ago. No one could have anticipated other events such as the COVID-19 pandemic eventually put the film in a state of perpetual delays. Okay, it is opening July 9th. I didn't remember what day it was opening. That's today, the day that this video is dropping. I'm recording this the prior night, so I have to get that get that straight. Since it was initially announced, it has been long. It has long been assumed that Black Widow would be Scarlett Johansson's Swan Song as the titular character. Considering that she sacrificed herself in Avengers Endgame to obtain the Soul Stone. Whoops! Spoiler alert. But whatever. I'm not gonna edit that part out because fuck it. I don't give a fuck. For her last hurrah, Black Widow flashes back to a time after 2016 Captain America Civil War and before 2018's Avengers Infinity War, when Nat is still on the run for violating the Sokovia Accords. Okay, so here's my ultimate question. Why is this movie being released now? Why wasn't it released in 2016, 2017, during when this movie is going to fall on the timeline? See, now right away, this movie already feels like it's like 4 or 5 years too late. Why even bother? But anyway, that's neither here nor there, and we'll actually revisit that by the end here. While the same questions about Johansson's MCU future persist, the Black Widow star is now reiterating her stance. Along with many fans, Johansson has waited a long time for Black Widow to be seen by the world. Now it's almost here. Johansson, who has played Natasha Romanoff since 2010's Iron Man 2. And funny enough, the role was not originally supposed to go to Scarlett Johansson. That was supposed to originally go to Emily Blunt. And I remember she was on Howard Stern like a couple of months ago. If I can find the video clip, I'm going to insert it right here about why she turned down the role of Black Widow.
You were offered the role of Black Widow in the Marvel series.
Yeah.
And that's a great role for Scarlett Johansson, but that would have been a great role for you too, and a slam dunk big role.
Mm-hmm.
But you had to turn it down because you're so fucking busy that you were doing Gulliver's Travels at that point.
No. I actually do want to clean up the story on Gulliver's Travels. I was contracted to do Gulliver's Travels. I didn't want to do Gulliver's Travels. It was a bit of a heartbreaker for me because I take such pride in the decisions that I make, and they mean so much to me, the films that I do. So that was tough.
I don't even understand how that happens. Because you do Devil Wears Prada, the studio says, we'll give you this film, but you've got to promise us you'll do another film and make that decision in a certain amount of time. Is that the idea of it?
Yeah, and they kind of have a bit of a hold over you. So there were other movies that I would want to do, and I'd say, but I really want to do this movie about young Victoria. And so at some point, I think it just became evident that I needed to get rid of this optional picture deal because it was going to just hang over me for a long time, and I didn't want that. And ultimately, as hard as it was, I don't think anyone expected for the hand to be forced. I think you kind of like hope that it isn't, but it was, yes, I care deeply, very, very much about the choices I make. That's all I have are the choices that I make, because after that, it's really left up to the gods, like what happens. And you usually don't really have any idea why a movie catches fire and why it doesn't. But no, I'm never left with a feeling of regret when I turn something down. It is, I know in 20 pages if I love it, it's ethereal as to why I like it. I don't know why I like it. I just love it. And I'm in or I'm out after 20 pages.
So when you show up on the set of Gulliver's Travels, because you're a professional, you're going to do the best you possibly can.
For sure. Yeah, of course. Yeah. No, I was never looking like a slapped ass on set. I'm not. I would never, ever do that. And right. No one knew. And I also didn't talk about it with anyone on set or anything, because there were a lot of lovely people in it who were heaven to work with. And I actually had a really good time. I had a laugh with all of them. But it irked my heart for it to have happened in the first place. But I ended up I will always try and make the best of any situation, for sure.
But anyways, back to the article. It says in an interview with Variety, Johansson addressed the big question of whether Black Widow will be her final portrayal of Natasha Romanoff, saying, quote, "I never feel like my work is done. I still think of new ways I could try lines from movies I shot 10 years ago. I really am happy with the work I accomplished in my last decade plus at Marvel. I feel like I'm going out on a high note with a movie I'm incredibly proud of. I feel like my work with Natasha is complete, if that is such a thing. I've explored many facets of her person and feel that her choice to sacrifice her life for her best friends was one that she made actively and with resolve," end quote. Now, if this is all Scarlett Johansson said, no problem. This movie would have, like she said, it would have gone out on a high note. Well, some people can't help themselves, and she has to come out and basically, from the New York Post, Scarlett Johansson calls out piece of ass treatment of Black Widow. Oh, this gets interesting. Now, granted, this was said back in 2019, but this is just resurfacing now that the movie's coming out. And she said, quote, "I mean, you look back at Iron Man 2, and while it was really fun and had a lot of great moments in it, the character is so sexualized, you know?" Johansson, 36, said during a 2019 roundtable discussion part of a press visit to the set of the upcoming movie, according to Hello Beautiful, quote, "really talked about like she's a piece of something, like a possession or a thing or whatever, like a piece of ass, really." And Tony Stark, played by Robert Downey Jr., even refers to her as something like that at one point. What does he say? "I want some." And, she continues on, quote, "At one point, Tony calls her a piece of meat, and maybe at that time that actually felt like a compliment," end quote. And what purpose does this serve? Well, just today, which by the time this video goes out will be yesterday on July 8th, Scarlett Johansson explains how Black Widow became Marvel's #MeToo movie. Let's go into here. I'm pulling this from CNN, which they're pulling it from Yahoo. But quote, and I'll flash these up on the screen so you can read these for yourself. We had a comment on what is this incredible movement of women supporting other women and coming through these shared experiences of trauma on the other side by really coming forward and supporting one another, she said. At the very beginning of really seriously talking about what this could be about, it was right during the beginning of the #MeToo movement and felt like you could not miss this opportunity to draw the comparison between these two things. Oh, but she goes on. Talking about the character of Black Widow. Quote, "She's been the victim of childhood trauma and exploitation, and it's a past that she doesn't want to face, that she's running away from. And then her sister, who is this very self-possessed kind of firecracker liability in some ways, but a person who is fiercely independent, basically forcing her to come to terms with that, forcing her to face it," adding, quote, "It felt very much like what is happening now. It was amazing to have the platform to be able to comment on that," end quote. Now, why in the fuck would you want to potentially piss off a good portion of your audience when Natasha Romanoff, aka Black Widow, has always been a femme fatale? So even if you go back and read the comics, her sexuality is part of her character. But why are they now saying it's now this #MeToo movie? Here's my theory, and I've seen this done before, is the filmmakers and the producers are looking for someone to blame when the movie inevitably fails. I remember they did this with Charlie's Angels back in 2018, 2019, when that movie failed. I remember when they came out and basically said, "We are not making this movie for men, this is all about women." So what happened? The men didn't show up to go see it and the movie bombed. When the movie bombed, they came out and blamed the men for not going to see the movie. They did the same shit with Ghostbusters 2016. Blamed the movie failing on a bunch of quote-unquote basement-dwelling misogynistic trolls. So, am I all that excited to see Black Widow at this point? No, not really. This movie, like I said, it's about 5 years too late, and now you're making it all about current day politics, the #MeToo movie. I was on the fence about skipping it, seeing as it was unnecessary. that it's retroactively being added to the Infinity Saga, which wrapped up with actually not Avengers Endgame, with Spider-Man Far From Home. But still, that series had already finished. This is retroactively being added. You now just gave me a reason to avoid this movie entirely. And guys, I'm going to go ahead and end it right here. As you guys know, if you've been listening for a while, I am terrible at ending these, so I will just see you guys next time.